Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to a new episode, a new spooky episode, and happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween. Today we're going to have a different type of true crime story. Honestly, if you were watching an episode of Game of Thrones or like a Shakespearean play, this would take you back to that. Because we are going to talk about a story that happened in the 14th century. There's going to be a corpse queen in this story. Amanda, would you ever want to be taken out of your tomb and have be placed in display for everyone to see you?
Are hyrogenics, or however you say it, a part of this?
No. It's just your corpse, your decomposed
Like my
remains.
skeleton?
Well, maybe not your skeleton. I mean, some people don't. It's not like you get buried and you become a skeleton immediately after you get put in the ground.
So, okay, y'all, I just want to say before we even start our intro, because this is important in life. Um, I, at 38 years old, realized that I don't know the human skeleton very well because I had no idea that my ribs went up so far in my body. Um, I have I have a disorder, and the infusions for it cause like inflammation in my ribs. And so I went to my doctor because I was having like pains in my chest, and he was like, "Oh, it's the inflammation around your ribs and your lungs." And I was like, "We're way up here." And he was like, "Where do you think your ribs are?" And I was like, "Right here in this middle section around my waist." And he was like, "Yeah, have you never," and this is during Halloween time, y'all. And he was like, "Have you never seen a skeleton?" And I was like, "I guess not, sir. I apologize. I'm not a doctor." But with that being said, I feel like if I'm ever going to be at my goal weight as a human, it will be when I'm a corpse. So I would absolutely enjoy being a
You would
corpse.
look fabulous in a fucking dress, you
Right?
know, and a
They could
coronation.
first like weave in my hair and call it a day, man. I'd look great.
But stay tuned. There's going to be a crazy, crazy story. Oh, we're back. By the way, that's Amanda, and this is I know it because I don't even know if we even said our names, right? Would
Yeah,
you
I
like?
don't know. We got caught up in our story.
Would you like to say your name, Amanda?
I'm Alice in Wonderland.
I'm a corpse bride. Can you tell?
I can. I like it.
Thank you. Well, today, the story is of Inês de Castro. She was the mistress of King Pedro the First of Portugal. And this is like Romeo and Juliet because it's very tragic, but it's so full of twists and turns. So let's begin with Ines. She is of nobility, right? Because back then there were like a bunch of bastards, right? And I mean that in the like
Literal
actual
way.
literal definition, yes.
So a
So
bunch
like
of babies without daddies.
no. Bastards as in um well yes, without daddies, but like okay, so her great grandfather descended from like the king of Castile, but he
Mhm.
was like the illegitimate son. And so and before when they had like children with not their wife, they would give them titles. But everybody would know that they weren't the legitimate children. So they would be like
So
cared
it was
for.
like America 2024.
Yeah. So they were
Yeah.
like cared for. They were like given their version of child support, I guess, like by giving them a title and giving them some money and some lands, but they wouldn't actually recognize them. Like they wouldn't have any claim on the throne, right? So she descended from nobility, and she was born in 1325, by the way, which was a really really long time ago.
1325.
I know. I wish I had a time machine so I could go back to those days, but I don't
Listen,
want to.
my brain doesn't work well with stuff like this because I know logically that dinosaurs weren't really around then. However, when I hear dates from that far back, all my brain can think is, man, they had to fight off like T-Rexes and I know they didn't. However, that's what my brain always goes to is, man, it must have been rough sharing a house with a stegosaurus. And but go ahead.
It must have been rough if they were around. But so Inez, she was from Castile, right? Castilla in Spain. So you have Spain and you have Portugal, right? And before there were a bunch of kingdoms. It wasn't just Portugal and Castilla, like Spain was divided into a bunch of different kingdoms.
Yes.
Um and when Constanza, her cousin, got married to King Pedro the First of Portugal, Inez went to Constanza to become her lady in waiting, which I wish, man, that was so cool. You have like people that bathe you, which is kind of awkward
Is
and
that what a lady
dress
in
you.
waiting is?
Yes, the ladies in waiting are the ones that like follow the queen around and like see if she needs anything and bring her tea and bath
So they
towels.
were like personal assistants?
Basically,
Okay.
basically. And they're usually also like, okay, so back in the day, if a queen had like secrets or that they were like the people that would keep, her closest allies typically.
They were her besties.
Yeah, but kind of forced to be her best. Well, not forced, because it was like, I guess, an honor to
I feel like
be.
we all kind of pay our besties to be our friends anyways, because, like, if you were to call me tomorrow and say, "Hey, I need $100," I'd cash app it to you because that's what friends do, right? So,
Yes,
I mean, we all
I
pay each other to be friends.
mm, Amanda, I need $1 million.
On it right now, I'm just gonna
Cash app it to me.
I send it to you.
Now, Inez goes from Castilla to Portugal to be Costanza's lady in waiting. And that's when she
Oh, I do
meets.
have a question about that. Sorry. Are there different levels to the lady in waiting? Like, do you become a higher level the longer you're there?
I actually have no clue. If you guys know, please write
Yeah.
it in the comments or something, because I don't
Heck
know.
yeah.
And maybe like you can level up.
Right, like, I'm the lady in waiting 1.
Yeah.
I'm number 6, heifer. I just want sorry, my brain, go ahead.
But that's when Inez meets King Pedro. And now Inez was beautiful. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also like a free spirit. She was very intelligent. She wasn't just a pretty face. She was everybody says that she was funny and she well, everybody says. I don't know, everybody that said it is dead. But it is written. The people that said it also wrote it apparently because we know
And
that she was
hieroglyphics
intelligent.
on a cave?
And hieroglyphics. And I'm gonna show you a picture of Constanza. This is her cousin, the one that's married to King Pedro. This bitch has a resting bitch face, like the at least in this portrait
And
that they
back
drew of
then,
her.
they were paintings, not pictures, correct?
Yeah, so this is like supposedly a good picture of her or painting of her. So I can
Okay.
only imagine what the real face looked like. Also, I hate how they wore those things. Why did they wear those things around their heads?
I
It's
I
not
don't know.
favorable.
Is it at all religious?
It probably is. They were Catholic. It probably has something to do with like covering your
That
femininity, you know, and not being like appealing to men.
are we
Um,
supposed to keep our necks covered?
um, I would, but I hate turtlenecks because it makes me feel like I can't breathe. Yes, I like it, Amanda. Go ahead.
All right, we may continue.
Listen, you look kind of cute. You look like you need to be like on a Vespa,
My name is Annette.
and you need to be on a Vespa, like riding through the cities of like the streets of Rome or something. You look
How do
very
we set that
posh.
up? Like, is there like a website?
Yes, it's called Delta Airlines, and you just go on there and like you book a flight, and
I
there you
love
go.
how I just have props readily available around me, though. This is great.
This is great. It's almost like we planned it.
I know.
We actually didn't. But um so back to the story. This is Ines, okay? No, this is not Ines. This is Constanza. My bad.
Right.
Okay. This is Ines. And that is
Is
King Pedro.
I was just gonna ask that. They look so happy and loving.
They do. Now King Pedro, his nickname is King Pedro the Cruel, and you will find out why a little bit later on. All
Oh,
right.
this is gonna break my heart. I can already tell.
I don't think it's gonna break your heart, man. I give him props when you find out why he is called King Pedro the Cruel. But so King Pedro fell madly in love with Ines. And his father, King Alfonso, knew about it. So he actually exiled um, Ines away from Portugal and sent her back to Spain, to Castilla. But that did not interrupt their love affair. Like they still sent letters, because they didn't have like WhatsApp or anything back
How
then.
did how did they send letters back then? Hold on. Hold on. You said the year was 1325. Is that accurate?
That's when she was born, 1325. Yes,
Okay, so if she was born in 1325, how many post offices did they have back then?
they sent them by horse
How did the horse know where to take the letter?
because they had and they even had ravens and stuff. They were smarter back then. I think. I don't know. They knew
Okay.
because they knew people's
I was like,
addresses. I
listen, how
guess.
much was a stamp back then? I need to understand what's going on, but was the forever stamps in play already? Okay,
Um,
sorry, go ahead.
But she was exiled. That didn't last for long. King Pedro did bring her back to court. At one point, his wife Constanza asked her to be the godmother to one of her children when they were going to baptize them, because she knew about the affair, and she knew that by Inez becoming the godmother of to one of their children, that would technically make them like a familial, like family.
Mhm,
So then they wouldn't Inez and Pedro wouldn't be able to be together, right?
okay.
Which is a weird thing to do. Like, let me make his side chick my child's godmother. But those were different times, right?
2024 will tell you that that doesn't work.
No, that shit don't work. Um, so then if we fast forward a little bit, their romance did continue, but it was, of course, everybody knew it, but it was one of those things that everybody knew but didn't. I mean, uh, but didn't say much about it, right? After all, back in those days, if you spoke ill of of kings and queens, that could
You
make
could be
you
beheaded.
yes, you
Yeah,
could.
I remember reading about that, and I don't remember what time frame or year it was, but I remember reading about how back when kings and stuff ruled the world, like, we should be really grateful as Americans because back then, if you spoke ill of your government at all, they would just behead you.
Yes, because you have to take into account like kings and queens back then, they were like appointed by God. So it was like blasphemy, right? They weren't just kings because their fathers were kings or their grandfathers were kings. They weren't kings because they were born into that lineage. They were kings because they were chosen by God himself to rule their people. So to go against your king, it's basically like going against God himself. Um so blasphemy, you know, all of that.
I would have been
Anyway,
beheaded. I would have
girl,
been
I know you would have.
curious about the king.
You
I'd
would
have been
have
like,
been
girl,
like,
you heard about King Roger?
listen, I actually thought about something. What was like their version of podcasts like back then? Like, can you imagine just people sitting in the street? Because,
They were people to open their window. Like they would open their window and talk to their neighbor, and that would have been their podcast.
um, but sidetracked as always. I blame ADHD
But
again.
now that you've said that, like I just sorry, I gotta throw this out there. As someone I used to own a newspaper. So when you said what was their version of podcasting, my brain went to how did they give out the newspapers? Like, did they have to like carve each individual newspaper in stone before they did
I don't think they had newspapers. Did they?
they
I
have
think
paper?
no, they did
That
have
sounds
paper.
stupid. How do you know? Or was everything written on scrolls?
I think things were written like on scrolls. I mean, and to be honest with you, I don't think back in those days, literacy, literacy. Oh my goodness, that is such a hard word for me to pronounce today. Literacy was not a thing that was like common to all
Which is why Inez was considered very smart then because she did have the
because she
capability.
knew how to read.
Right, and
She
right.
knew how to read. She was smart.
Gosh, I'd have been an effing genius, man.
I know, I should have been born in those times.
I bet you back then people didn't even know how to say literacy.
Hey, I don't know how to say it now either, so not much has changed. But what I was saying is I mean, I think back then it was like more like singing. You know, that's how they told stories by
Okay.
singing, maybe?
Well, and I know that back in those times they did a lot of shows and stuff like that, like theater and things like
That
that.
is true. Yes, theater as well. I think that that was their version of like how
Podcasting. That's how you got the tea.
podcasting. Yeah, that's how you got the tea. You went to the theater because they would like make fun of like the royalty. I think that's the only way you could get around it by in the
Yeah,
theaters.
I would have owned a theater. There we go.
So there we are. We are with Constanza trying to make Inez the lady in waiting. I mean not the godmother, sorry, of their child.
Right. And that was an attempt
Um
to keep her away from him, correct?
to try to keep him away from her or her away from him, vice versa, what have you. Um so unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, fortunately for them probably because they were happy about it, I'm pretty sure somebody probably killed her, but Constanza dies shortly after childbirth. I think she had like 5 children or something like that, 3 or 5 children.
At one time?
What do you mean at one time?
You
Like, she didn't die after.
you
Oh,
you
no.
I'm
Did
so
she
sorry. Oh, I'm
you're
crying.
asking
Oh,
if
you
she had,
said
like, 3
she died at childbirth, and you think she had anywhere from 3 to 5 children, and I'm trying to decide if she had triplets, quintuplets, and then she died, or if she had 1 baby that caused her to die after she already had 4 other kids.
No, she had
Oh,
1 baby that caused her to die.
okay.
Oh my god. No, 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 she didn't have, like, 3 or 5 children at once. That
I was like,
that
she had a litter.
Oh god. Mm. Oh, okay. Anyways, after one of her children was born, one of them, not three or five, she unfortunately passed away. Okay. Um, then at that point, King Pedro, he wanted to legitimize his union with Inez because he was madly in love with her. They were, no matter what his dad tried to do, he couldn't keep them away from each other. Um, so he asked the Pope for permission to marry her, but the Pope denied the request. Because back then you had to ask a fucking Pope if you were royalty for permission.
Okay, so only royalty had to ask. It wasn't like everyone had to ask if they could marry each other, just royalty.
No, just royalty because royalty, was put there by
And
God.
one pope was over multiple kingdoms?
Yeah, well, there is always and has always only been one pope.
I am a horrible ex-Catholic,
And he's in Rome and,
I didn't know that.
his own little country of the Vatican.
So, okay, so there were multiple kingdoms, but all of them had to ask. Okay, I understand now.
Oh,
Got it.
all of them had. The Pope supposedly denied the request, but it is written that they were married still, regardless, in secret. They had three children together, and they lived a few years really, really happily. Now, King Pedro's dad, which was King Alfonso the Fourth, he was growing increasingly concerned because of Inez's ties to the Castilian uh, ro- uh, kingdom, right? And the influence that he believed that her brothers were putting on King Pedro. Now, King Pedro's dad, King Alfonso, what he was afraid of is that if her children were had a claim to the throne, that they were going to make Portugal not Portugal anymore, but that they were going to unite that kingdom with the kingdom of Castilla. Do you understand?
I do understand.
Okay. So, because of this, he tried to separate them again and again and again, and it never worked. They lived a few years really happily. Like I said, they had three children. And then one day, you know how before they used to have like hunting trips? Have you ever watched like Game of Thrones or any like so they
Not
were
Game
in
of Thrones, but I bet I used to be like, in love with Spartan and all those kinds of movies like that, so I know what you're referring to.
yeah, and back then it wasn't like a one day affair. Like this was a whole party, right? So King Alfonso's like, "Hey son, go hunt and be merry and have fun, whatever." So King Pedro, he's like, "Oh, great, thanks, Dad." He goes hunting, and at this point, King Alfonso, which is King Pedro's dad, orders the execution or the murder of Inez. And
No.
he sent three assassins to their house and they killed her in front of her children.
Oh my gosh, while he was gone on the hunting vacation.
Trip. Yes.
Could you imagine? Like, even in today's society, like, I mean, that would be our true crime episode right there anyways, if I'm gonna see if I can find someone that's happened to.
But do you like what um appalls me is that this was acceptable. Like eh, King Alfonso killed his son's, wife
He
technically.
was the king, so he could.
He could. It was acceptable. I mean, nobody would do anything. He wasn't going to go to jail.
There's people out here that hate their parents for the trauma they received growing up. Could you imagine if your parent killed the only person you loved? Talk about some stress. Like, I don't.
Well, the thing is, of course, King Pedro went back home and found the news that Inez had been murdered by on at the request of his father. This nearly started a civil war. He swore to seek revenge, and he actually did start a small war with his father, but his mom intervened. Um, and
Leave it to
told
the mom.
Pedro, yep. His mom was like, listen, chill the fuck out. Your dad's an asshole. Well, I'm guessing that's what she said. Your dad's an asshole, but he gonna die at some point, and then you're gonna be king, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want. Just please stop because everybody's suffering because of this shit,
Right.
right? Like people are going hungry, people are dying. Like we can't have a separated kingdom because back in those days, Amanda, if your kingdom, like if you were showing weakness, it wasn't just like the
That's
turmoil
when
from
you're taking
inside.
over.
Yep, that's other kingdoms around you. They would be like, oh, I heard the kingdom of Portugal, they're fighting with themselves.
Right.
Let's go, like, take over them. So the mom was like, yo, Pedro, just chill out for a minute. And then shortly after that, his father died. Um, I can only assume here that his mom had a hand in it. Because back in those days, there
Yeah,
was
pretty convenient that she said he's gonna die eventually, and then he dies eventually.
exactly. And
Just random news. Arsenic has no taste. Go ahead.
I was about to say that. I was like, someone just told me arsenic has no fucking taste or smell, apparently.
Mhm.
But back in those days, people were getting poisoned back in like I honestly I wouldn't be surprised if something was done to Constanza as well by either Ines or Pedro so that they could actually be together.
Right.
Um I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So King Pedro now is actual he's the actual king. And his first the first thing he does when he comes into office or whatever or the throne, it's not an office because it's not president. Anyways, when he comes into the throne, the first thing he does is seek out the three assassins of Inez. One of them escape. One of them escapes. The
Okay.
other two, however, do not. And they meet a super cruel ending. Okay, now this is, I mean, I'm not going to go into super graphic detail, but I just want to say beforehand that he does some horrible things. Um, so if you're sensitive to those types of things, or violence or whatever, you may want to stop here for a second and fast forward. So he grabs them. He hangs them up in front of everybody for everybody to see, right? And while they're still alive, he cuts open their chest and pulls out their heart
Wow.
in front of everyone. And it is written that he says that he's taking out their heart because they don't have one in the first place for what they did to Inez.
I agree.
That's how he got the nickname King Pedro the Cruel. I don't think that's cruel. I think that's fucking just.
I do too, and that's my biggest thing. They're calling him cruel for them taking away the love of his life. And I'm sorry, like, there's not a lot of people in life I would go to war for. Like, I got a few friends, their kids, because kids are the world to me. And then, like, one guy. And listen, if somebody were to take him from me, I'm not going to lose much by taking out a few hearts.
No, I fucking agree, man. Like
Is there such thing as predestined to be a serial killer? Because I'm that person.
Like you have a predisposition.
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that I mean that's a whole nature versus nurture argument, and I don't know. I don't know about your nature, but nurture
I'll
maybe.
check.
But anyways, I mean I don't think I think that he was absolutely within his right to do that shit.
Right.
To be honest with you, I'm sad that one of them escaped. Because I think all three of them should have been murdered. Well, not murdered, but executed for their crimes.
Right.
I mean, they killed her in front of her children, in front of their children. Like, not only did you I mean, the trauma of those fucking children.
Exactly. Well, and
Can
that's
you
what I was
imagine?
thinking.
And while he was away, like he couldn't even defend her. Like he had to feel like shit. I hope this made him feel better, and I hope it made him sleep better.
Well, and I hope that those kids saw what he did to the people that killed their mother,
Exactly.
so that at
Because,
least they can feel safe now in their home where those people came and killed their mother.
hmm man, times back then were fucking. Oh my god. I mean, I do want to go back and visit. If there's ever a time machine, I would like to go back and visit just
We're
to.
gonna go back to 1325 if there's ever a time machine.
Yeah, the thing. Yes, Okay. So this has nothing to do with the story, but I feel like when I watch movies or I watch TV and it's like a different time period, like the 1300s or like the 1800s, like the Gilded Age, or, um, just, mm, I don't know, the 1950s, which I love. I would love to go back to these places, but like only under certain circumstances. Like, I don't want to go back to the 1300s to be a fucking peasant. You know what I mean? Or like, I don't want to go to the 1950s and or the 1800s and be like Native American because
I
you know
don't think that using the time machine changed your ethnicity in the process. So I don't think that like I'll get in the time machine and come out black. I don't think it
well
changes like ethnicity or gender or anything.
I don't know. Nobody knows how that shit works, Amanda.
They
Like,
do. The people with that car know.
what car?
The Back to the Future car.
Okay. Okay. And then they didn't change, right? Because that's one of the things, like, I wouldn't
No,
want
they
to go
didn't. They saw their younger selves, so they didn't go that far back in time or anything, but
because I mean I would when I time travel, well, I don't, but if I
y'all heard her
if
here first. Let the rumors and conspiracies start. She travels.
If I time travel, I would always picture myself in these time traveling scenarios as someone with money, which is not.
Yeah, I don't think when you time travel, like, it doesn't change your ethnicity, your gender, or add money to your bank account.
But in my time traveling dreams, I would I am in these places. I would be in these places ideally as a prosperous woman. Like, I don't want to be there and be struggling. You know how bad it was, like, after World War II in a lot of places, or like the
I
Great
mean, no, I
Depression.
don't because I personally don't have a time machine, so I've never time traveled like you.
I
So
mean,
I
I
have no
haven't either.
idea what those items are like or those places are like because I have only lived for the last 12 years because I'm young.
You're young. Oh, did you hear that?
I didn't, but it looks like it really concerns you.
It did. Hold on. No, today, I read this thing that said I'm a 40-year-old woman, a 40-year-old teenager.
Listen, I don't know how to sign up to quit adulting. Like I wrote my resignation letter, but I don't know who to turn it into.
You can turn it into me. I will um
Accept
send
it?
it. Accepted, yes.
Please send a copy to my landlord so she doesn't wait for my rent next month.
I will also send hold on, what age are you going to become? Is it going to be under working age? Because I can send an excuse to your job, letting them know that they are breaking child labor laws
Absolutely.
and
I am
that you're
13.
going to sue them.
Yes, I am 13. Officially on October 31st.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and send that to me tomorrow if you wish.
It's already in the mail.
Perfect.
I time traveled.
Um Back to the story. Where were we? Okay. Yes. He cut out their hearts, got their nickname. Um got the nickname Pedro the Cruel. Okay. And then after that happened, he did something that I find extremely romantic, if I'm honest with you.
Okay.
He had two tombs built, one for him and one for her. And I'll show you a picture. This was hers.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't
Okay.
that pretty?
Could you imagine the detail? Because you got to remember, they didn't have the same kind of tools and things like that back then. The
Yeah,
detail that went into building and making something like this, like sculpting something like this, is phenomenal.
I know. This is his. The other one was hers. And on his is actually, and I can't zoom in, but if anybody wants to go and look, Google it. In his, there's like this wheel represents their life. So from the moment they met to how they fell in
Oh, I
love,
can see it.
to how they had children, to how she was murdered and died, and how he avenged her and everything. So this is like the wheel of life of their life together. And he put that, I believe, on his tomb. After the tombs were built, he had her uninterred, so he unburied her, right? He pulled her from the grave that she was at in
He exhumed,
Coimbra. De-entombed her? Is that what it's called? What did you say?
I said he exhumed her body.
Oh, exhumed her. Yes, that is the I said a bunch of different words. That's
Well, and I have
the
no
word
idea
that I was
what you just said either. He exhumed her? Yes, exhumed is when they take them out of a tomb and put them into a different one. Exhumed. Retombed, something.
I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna die laughing. Um,
If you do,
okay,
I will exhume you.
exhume me.
Oh,
Okay, so he exhumed her. That's what we're gonna
he
call it now.
yep,
He she was in one tomb, and he exited her out of that tomb,
and then
and returned.
I will never call it anything else ever again. I just want
Oh,
to make that clear.
oh God. Okay, no, but before he retombed her, uh, he legend says that he dressed her up in a royal gown
Aw.
and crowned her, sat her on the throne, because she hadn't. You have to understand, they married in secret, and she died before King Pedro became king. So she hadn't had like a proper reigning ceremony. She
Okay.
hadn't become, you know, crowned. And I think as kind of like revenge to all the nobility and all of the ones that, didn't really accept their
That made them
union.
keep it secret. Like, he
Yeah,
loved her,
he really fucking loved her.
and
Like
I
this
want
was
love like that, man.
me too.
I mean, I don't want you to have to untote tomb me, exhume me.
Exhume you and retomb you.
And I don't want you to have to tomb me. But I do want you to show me off to the world and be like, "This I will rip hearts out for this woman right here." That's love.
Yes, that is fucking love. He loved her. And honestly, okay, so I know that he was his side chick or whatever in the beginning, but you have to understand something. He didn't marry Constanza because he wanted to marry Constanza.
Right.
Like back then, it was arranged marriages. Like it was basically, if you were a woman, and especially a woman in nobility, you were another tool for your father to use you to gain favors.
Right,
Or
I mean, that's what most girls were brought up with back then, you were sold away for some cattle and some, whatever.
yeah, and as nobility, he was forced to marry Constanza just to kind of appease to make a union to bring peace to the kingdom of Castilla and the kingdom of Portugal. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like that's that's all it fucking was. So it wasn't marriage for love. It was marriage by force. His father told him, "You have to marry her." And then he met Inez, and he was like, "Fair maiden, I love you," or something like that.
everyone always talks about Romeo and Juliet being the best story.
But
I
they
think
were.
Corpse Bride.
It is. I think so. I think it truly was. There's been a lot of plays and stuff done about it. I haven't watched any of them, but I feel like there should be a movie done about this story.
There
I feel like it would be a really good movie. Um,
isn't there a movie?
no, there isn't. But hold on, let me finish up.
There is a
So
movie.
there is a movie.
Yeah, by the guy with the weird skeleton people.
Are you talking about Tim Burton?
Yeah, in the Corpse Bride.
I don't think that that is the movie.
I mean, the name of it's The Corpse Bride.
Yes, but it isn't. Oh, we might have to change the name of our episode. Okay, hold on. Let me finish the story. See, guys, Amanda cuts me off all the time, and then I forget my place.
It's my
Mm.
ADHD.
You can't blame everything on that.
I can't.
Anyways,
I'm old. It's my ADHD.
I'm a Virgo.
Sure,
Just kidding.
ADHD.
Um, so what he did is like after he dressed her and like did her hair, I'm imagining that they did her hair or whatever hair was left in her head and like put a crown. He legend says that he made all the nobles come to court to her reigning ceremony to officially make her queen, and he made them kiss her the hem dress in her hand. So like here. Like kiss her I did.
So, and they used to have those dresses with the long lace and stuff. So they were kids.
Yes.
Got it.
So everybody had to kneel in front of her and kiss her fucking dead hand.
I'm sorry. That's kind of creepy.
It is kind of creepy, but he was like, this is like fucking revenge. This is revenge on
No, I get
everyone.
that. Like, and if you know what, and if my man don't go that far, like any man of mine, just like I better be just like him.
Listen, if you ain't gonna treat me like King Pedro, then I don't want you,
Yeah, no.
fool.
Mm. I'm like, you can't do for me what he did for her. So
Do you even love me? I mean, anyways, yes, he made everyone do that, and then after, the ceremony, he buried her in the tomb that he made, and then when he died, he was buried in the tomb that he made for himself that's next to hers, so that they will rest together in all eternity. I have no clue where his wife Constanza is buried. I don't think he cares, but she's probably buried somewhere else
probably
far away.
retombed her in Anessa's old tomb. So he reused the tomb, so it was a recycled tomb.
Um, and her children did gain titles. I think it wasn't her children that had because they weren't firstborns, how before it was, your firstborn child and stuff like that gets a shot at being king. I think it was his children with Constanza that did, but they did get titles. They did have claims to the throne if all the other people died.
Never mind. It doesn't matter. I was going to ask how that worked.
No.
Like, you said they get a chance at being king. Like, is there like a competition?
No, it's like not a competition.
Okay.
It's like if people die. So say that there's like 10 brothers, right? And the
Oh, so
oldest
you got to
gets,
kill off all the older ones.
yeah, you got to kill off everyone else and then you get to be king.
I
That's
got this.
easy. So that's the end of the story, you guys. I hope you really liked it. I hope you enjoyed walking with your children or without your children, asking for candy at random houses. Um, please eat responsibly. And till next week, we'll see you again.
Happy Halloween, y'all.
Happy Halloween. Are you gonna put the outro video?
The song is on. You
I thought you were gonna do both.
listen, but the song never played. You hear
It
the
is
song?
playing. Yes.
I know what I can't hear the song.
Now it's playing.
I can't. My brain is not processing what's going on because I can't hear the song. Hold on.
But I could.
All right. Yeah. Happy. Oh my God. Stop crying, Amanda. All right, y'all. Have a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
In lieu of murder, it's love with a twist. Dating disasters you can't resist. From first dates to court dates, we've got it all. So grab a seat and join the fun. In lieu of murder, we're number one.